Good morning, my YouTube viewers. In this video, what we're going to talk about is the data structures in R. So in the last video, we talked about the basics of R. So in this video, we're going to talk about data structures. So the first data structure, the lowest level data structure in R is the vector. So a vector becomes, and then you put C in it, so C kind of like combines all of the different elements, brackets, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if we say vector 2, that's indexing, and vector 2 gives you a number 2. But if we say VEC, come over here, we're just letting it run. So you can see here that when we print off the vector, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the vector of the second element is 2. The thing about a vector in R is it has to contain homogeneous data. That means that it has all of the data has to be of one type. So it has to be either numeric or character or Boolean. So after you have the vector, the next data structure that we have is the matrix. And a matrix is a 2D structure, whereas a vector is a 1D structure. So a matrix becomes matrix, and then brackets, numbers 1 to 9. So that's 1 colon 9, comma, in row equals 3, so that's 3 rows, and in col equals 3, so that's 3 columns. So we print off the matrix, and you can see we have a matrix of 9 digits, 1 to 9. And then so when we say map 2 to 3, it's the second row and the third element in the second row, which is 8. The next thing we have after the matrix is an array. An array can be more than 2 dimensions. So it could be 3 dimensions or however many dimensions you would like. So ARR equals or becomes array, and then the array is the function. So it's going to be 1 to 12, and then the dimension is going to be C. That lets you know it's a vector 2, 3, 2. So that's your dimensions of that array. So we print off the array, and it's 1 to 12. And then we print off array 1 to 1, and that's going to give you 3. So if you want more than 2 dimensions, then you're going to have an array. And so that's different from Python's arrays, because in Python, an array is pretty much the same as a list. There's no distinction between an array and a list in Python. But in R, you have a separate data structure called an array. So, and the thing about the vector, the matrix, and the array is they all must have homogeneous data. That means all of the data must be the same type, being either a number, a character, or a Boolean. So now we come up with a list in R. So R is one-dimensional, but it can be mixed. It can have mixed data in it, which means it's not homogeneous. So we're going to have my list equals list, brackets, name equals Alice, comma, age equals 25, comma, scores equals C, brackets, 90, 85, and 88. So we're going to print off my list name. That's going to be Alice. And we're going to print my list 1, so that's the first element, and that's going to be Alice. We're going to print my list age, it's 25, and we're going to print my list number 2, the second element, which is 25, and then we're going to print my list the third element, which is 90, 85, and 88. And then after the list, which is not homogeneous, so you can have different types of data in the list, whereas it can be a combination of number or character or Boolean. We have the data frame, and the data frame is something that you're going to use in data science a lot. And your data frame is two-dimensional, so it's going to be 2D tabular data. And I use data frames a lot. You're going to use data frames in Python as well. But the great thing about the difference between R and Python is that the data frame is programmed specifically in R, inbuilt into R, but in Python, because Python is an all-purpose language, you have a library called pandas, which creates your data frames. So that's something about R that's different from Python, whereas the data frame is built in there. So df becomes data.frame, and then so name equals C, that's you're combining the two elements, Alice, comma, Bob. Age equals C, brackets, 25, comma, 30. Score equals C, comma, 90, comma, 88. And so what you're doing is you are actually combining all the data together when you say C. And then we're going to print the data frame, and on the data frame you have 2 rows being Alice and Bob, and 3 columns being name, age, and score. So that is your data frame. So we also have something called a factor. And factors are used in categorical values, and I'm not really familiar with a factor being used in Python. I'm not familiar with a factor in Python. So a factor is something that's peculiar to R. So if you want to create a factor, you say fruit becomes C, and in brackets, apple, comma, banana, comma, apple, comma, orange, comma, banana, comma. So you can see already that you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 5 elements in this vector that we have created. But in the vector that we have created, you have 3 types of fruit, being apple, banana, and orange. So we're going to convert this vector of fruit into a factor. So we're going to say factor fruit, and then when you print off fruit factor, it's going to be apple, banana, orange, banana, and then when you print the levels, it's going to be apple, banana, orange. So that's something peculiar to R that I personally haven't seen in Python. We have something called an ordered factor. So sizes become C, brackets, small, medium, large, medium, small. Size factor becomes factor, sizes, comma, level equals C, brackets, small, medium, large, and ordered equals true. And then so we're going to say size factor. It says show hidden output. So we're going to show the hidden output, which is small, medium, large, medium, small. And then we have our levels of small, medium, large. So those are the data structures that we have in R. We have the vector, the matrix, the array, the list, the data frame, and the factor. So those are the data structures that you can use in R. So that concludes this video. The next video, we're going to be talking about importing and exporting data in R. So I hope you decide to watch it.